Good afternoon, everyone. In life, we feel the safest thing for us to do is to run from trauma. I'm here to tell you today that the best thing for us to do is to stand in it, face it, and confront it in order for us to move past it and become our very best selves. Without confronting my trauma, I would never be where I am today. When my son was in the 2nd grade, he was diagnosed with ADHD. We went through the process of trying to figure out what was going on with him because I had just moved, purchased my first home. My grandfather had passed away, and also he was living in 2 different homes, one suburban home, one inner city home. All of a sudden he went to school and they started to talk about the different things they started seeing. He never had any of these issues before. About every day, they would call me, say he was emotional, he couldn't keep his shoes on, he was just upset, and this was something I didn't see at home. During this time, I was in my 1st semester getting my master's in school counseling. So I really zoned in on disabilities, learning disabilities within children. When I did this, I found out that African American children are more likely to be diagnosed with ADHD than other children because of their environments, the way they are growing up in their home life. When I found this out, I realized that there were things that I could do to help him, and I digged really deep into it. During this time, I was also a director at a child care facility where I served as director as well as counselor. At this time, we had 279 children with 37 staff, and I assisted my mother in opening this facility in 2010. So while all of this was going on, it seemed like right after I found this out about my son, every day there was a parent coming to me saying, "Something's wrong with my child. Do you know how I can help my child and assist them in this way?" So as I'm learning about this to help my son, I realized this became a part of my purpose to help other people and their kids as well. So, is your childhood trauma haunting you? Okay. Everything you go through is a sum of who you are today. So my personal childhood trauma experience, I feel as though it may not be large to some, but it is big enough for me. In 1990, my mother opened a in-home childcare daycare. So when I went off to college in 2006, I didn't know who I wanted to be, what I wanted to do. All I knew was I don't want to do anything with children. I felt like this because I was surrounded by them my whole life, so my goal was to get away from them. When I had my son in 2018, my heart softened a little bit. And then in 2010, when my mom was presented with the opportunity to open a child care center, and she asked me to help her, I really dug deep into if it was something I wanted to do. I realized this was something I wanted to do because now, well, I stated to her, I'll do it, but I don't want to work with the children. So when I decided that, I will come up with my own job description and opportunity for myself. So I decided to go back to school for school counseling. So I want to explain to you what trauma is. Any event beyond a person's ability to master at the time. Any occurrence that causes emotional upset or unfortunate lifestyle change. So my trauma created my purpose because I felt as though I did not want to do anything with children, didn't want to be around them. As I grew up and adapted, I realized it was something that I could not shake. It was in me to help people, whether they was children or adults. It was just naturally in me. So I show you this diagram, which is about ACEs. ACEs is an adverse childhood experience study which is the first and largest research study that shows a direct association between childhood trauma and adult health. This study proves that the more adverse childhood experience a child has, the higher the likelihood of the child having disabilities, dysfunctions, swayed perceptions about life, health, and relationships. 1 in 6 adults experience 4 or more ACEs. As you can see, I call these the trees: abuse, neglect, and household dysfunction. Up under them, I feel like those are the branches of the trees, and we'll soon get to the leaves. So think back. As a child, how many of you experienced death, lived in households with a single parent, experienced divorce or a move, was mentally, verbally, sexually, or physically abused, suffered from addiction at birth, grew up in a home with an adult with a substance abuse problem, grew up in foster care or was adopted, was a parent to your siblings, grew up in poverty, experienced illnesses, were homeless, had an incarcerated parent, or experienced a pandemic, which none of us here besides the small children can say they experienced as a child. Childhood trauma is present in 60% of American adults. So, like I said, I work with people of all ages, from 6 weeks to 90 years old. I've been surrounded by people my whole life. So some of the things that I see in and out, which are all of these things on a day-to-day basis, some people only may see on TV. But when you deal with these things so close and upfront, you can only want to help these people that have these childhood traumas so that you know they will do better as adults. Like I said, since 1990, my mom has had a child care center. So some of the kids that go to my center today were once kids in her center a long time ago. I see how they have developed. I've watched their families grow. And just knowing their situation and circumstances, some of them I'm happy to see to be where they are today. So what does childhood trauma cause in adulthood? As I said, it can cause ADHD, it can cause a lack of discipline, abandonment issues, low self-esteem and self-doubt, suicidal thoughts, lack of social skills, lack of discipline, extremely high value immaterial things, and the big one for me is a fear of flying. If you look at the pyramid, this shows the relationship between early childhood trauma and health and well-being problems later in life. So at the bottom, you see adverse childhood experiences, and as it goes up, you see it can lead to early death. No one is exempt from trauma. Today, we are all standing in the face of a pandemic. Being in this pandemic, we understand that we are not in control of the things going on around us, but we are only in control of who we are. So we must understand that we have to learn to work through our trauma to become our very best selves. 3 points in life when trauma becomes apparent. It becomes apparent when you have adult relationships, whether intimate or friendships, because you may realize you're afraid to get close to people. The moment you start to get close to someone, you draw back. You may be very defensive or lack a voice in a relationship. You may lack trust, or you may only communicate in a toxic manner or even run when it comes to communication. When it comes to pursuing your dreams, you may feel inadequate, lack resilience, discipline, consistency, and the ability to network and create relationships to help build your dream. When becoming a parent, trauma becomes present because you could be modeling to them who your childhood trauma created you to be. As for me, in becoming a parent, it showed me why I didn't want to work with children, and it taught me to love children again as I once did when I was smaller. Why is it important to come face to face with your trauma? So you can overcome and become your very best self. Without me becoming face to face with my trauma, I would have never been in the positions that I am today. I would never started counseling people. I would have never stayed as a child care director. I would have never dug deep into ADHD and love childhood trauma as much as I do. And I will never be able to help people as much as I can with overcoming their childhood trauma. So some ways to help you confront your childhood trauma when it comes to the surface. You have to really question yourself, interview yourself. Why am I like this? When did I become this way? Create a list of things you can change about yourself and a list of things that you cannot. When you look at that list of things you can change about yourself, really dig into it and write down how exactly you're going to do it. When you look at the list of things you cannot change about yourself, focus on letting go of what you cannot change. How have you grown and how will you grow past this situation or circumstance? In developing my courses, the first one I developed, I did this activity, this third activity, and I'm just going to read to you what I wrote to myself. This activity, you write a letter to the part of you that was lost due to trauma, asking you to return. In my letter, I wrote, "Dear self-love, I know you left because you were overweight, disappointed, angry, hurt, and upset that you became a parent at 19. It is now safe for you to return because you have accomplished so much and you have overcame your traumas and you are a better person and a better mother because of it. I promise to cherish and not abandon you even when I feel defeated. I miss you and I need you in my life because in order to be loved, I must love myself first. Please return so I can be whole. Love, your 24-year-old self." So that was a letter that I wrote to myself when I realized what my trauma was and who I was becoming in life. Another thing you can do is simply write down your feelings, allowing yourself to see them on paper. Writing is very therapeutic. Write daily affirmations. Make sure you can see them throughout your house, in your office, in your bathroom, on your refrigerator, allowing yourself to tell yourself you are valuable, you are loved, you are a good mother, you will break generational curses. When you can see these things, even when other people don't tell you, you're constantly reminding yourself of your value and your importance. Talk to someone you trust, whether it's a friend, a family member, a counselor, or a therapist. And lastly, buy a candle. When you feel this trauma overcoming you, light that candle. When you light that candle, you want to do an activity such as run, walk, write, take a bath, talk to someone. And I always tell people for maybe about 15 minutes. Once you blow out that candle, you've done the activity to hopefully allow you to release that energy that you feel. One thing all children need today, more than anything, is an aware, loving, caring, resilient, and nurturing adult. When people come into my office to be interviewed, they don't have to be Einstein. They don't have to know everything. The one thing I need to look for is the fact that they love children, they care about children, and I know they will not mistreat them. Confronting and dealing with your childhood trauma is essential when parenting today. Even through childhood trauma, if a child has that one thing, it is more likely they will grow up and have a sense of confidence, compassion, resilience, trust, and a love for others. Always remember, if you are here today, you have accomplished surviving your trauma, which is a lesson in itself. No matter what happened to you, you are a survivor. Allow yourself to recognize your childhood trauma so that it will be your testimony and not your life's tragic trajectory. Always remember also, the one thing we can do in life is be our best authentic selves. And for me, my childhood trauma has made me healed and helpful. My name is Brinetta, and thank you.